Okay. I think just about everyone has seen a flowchart at some point in their lives. They usually consist of various geometric shapes with arrows going from one to the next. Sometimes you see funny ones like those I've placed on the screen. Unfortunately, as you would probably guess, these flowcharts aren't very rigorously developed. And so we'll spend some time now discussing how to create them and how to create them in an effective way. Flowcharts have various types of shapes and connectors that make them up. And I'm now showing a bunch on the screen. Generally, the geometric shapes represent some kind of step in a process, and the arrows, or connectors as we call them, they indicate the flow from one step in the process to the next. The first one is a rectangle. I think you probably already knew that, but we call them rectangles. Rectangles describe a step in a process, usually. Rectangles also have some text inside them that describes what's actually happening in that step of the process. And here we have some text in there. User attempts to log on to the website. Okay, good. The second shape is the diamond. Diamonds are sometimes called decision points or decision steps, and probably half a dozen other terms. But what they mean is that the next step will vary based on some data or a decision of some kind. And I'll add some text here, which says just credentials valid. Okay, note that question mark, that's important. The next two shapes are a bit special. They are borrowed or stolen from UML, the Unified Modeling Language that we talked about a little while ago. The first, the solid circle or disk, is called a start. The second, the solid circle with a ring around it, is called a finish. These two shapes are, I suppose they're optional, but I recommend strongly that you use them so your readers will know where the start and the end of the flow are. By the way, flowcharts can have any number of rectangles and diamonds, but they should only have one start and one finish. And usually the starts and finishes are not labeled with text because they generally don't need to be. And that leaves us with the arrow or the connector. Connectors, as I mentioned before, they indicate flow from one shape to the next. Most of the time, they're not labeled with text, except for when they leave a diamond shape. When connectors leave a diamond, there are always at least two of them, and so we have to label them. And let's take a look at an example here. Okay, so what you now see on the screen is a very simple illustration of a logon process. We start off on the left-hand side with the start shape. From there, we have the connector going to the first actual step in the process, where we have the user attempting to log on to the website. From there, we have another connector going to a diamond shape, where we have a decision taking place. So if the user's credentials are valid, there's a connector going up to one step in the process where the system welcomes the user. And if the credentials are not valid, there's a connector going down to this step where the system tells the user to try again. So that's what we were talking about when we say that when the connector is leaving a diamond shape, it depends on some kind of condition, and that's why we have to label the connectors that leave the diamond shape. So note that these two outcomes are also handled differently from here. If the system welcomes the user, we consider the process complete, and that's why we have the connector going from that welcome step to the finish shape. But if the system tells the user to try again, then we have a connector going back to the step in the process where the user attempts to log on to the site. Okay. One thing I just want to point out is that a lot of people don't include the start and finish shapes, and that can cause confusion. Let's take a look at this diagram without them. Oof. All right. Now, if you asked me where this flowchart started, I would I would either choose the box farthest to the left, which is correct, or I might think it actually started with the box at the top, which ironically is where it ends. Just to avoid this kind of confusion, I recommend including the start and finish shapes. That's pretty much all you need to know about flowcharts. The only other thing, one thing to be aware of, is that there are a large number of additional shapes available, especially in the graphic applications. We're not covering them here because, first of all, they're not really necessary in a foundations course, but also they're used differently by many people, and there isn't really a standard way to learn them. I'll encourage you to just start off with the shapes that we've discussed here, and then branch out into additional shapes as you find necessary with time.